Oh, wait, and then we move the mouse.
Okay, so I'm gonna start off by saying who he was, which I'm pretty sure everybody knows who he is. Um, Adolf Hitler was the leader of the Nazi Party and dictator of Germany from 1933 to 1945. He was born on April 20th, 1889 in Austria, and growing up, he did not get along with his father, but was very close with his mother. He dreamed of becoming an artist, but he was not accepted into the art academy of his dreams. Not being accepted put him at a low point in his life, along with the death of his mother. He became very lonely and isolated, and this created a lot of hatred in him, specifically towards German Jews. This eventually led to the Holocaust, where millions of Jews were either brutally murdered or forced to work in intense labor. Um, the 1940s was the era that this like conspiracy came about, and the 1940s were a huge time in history, and it was defined by World War II, the Holocaust, atomic bombs, and the beginning of the Cold War. And on April 30th, 1945, Adolf Hitler committed suicide by gunshot to the head along with his wife Eva Braun in his bunker in Berlin. He committed to avoid being captured by Soviets who storming Berlin, and this led to the end of the war. The conspiracy theory is that Hitler faked his death using a realistic body double and escaped to South America and lived there hiding with his wife until like the 1960s, I think it was, that people believed. And people believe that there were many ways Hitler could have disguised himself to keep his identity secret while living in Argentina, and other ways that he could have disguised himself.
We should decide which one looks the best, right?
Yeah.
And the weirdest.
I think the bald one would be, I would believe.
Yeah, that one. I like the drawing on glasses. We go.
The narrative that Hitler did not commit suicide, but instead escaped Berlin was first presented to the general public by Marshal Georgy, is it Zukov? Zukov, at a press conference on the June 9th, 1945, on orders from Soviet leader Joseph Stalin. And when he was asked at a conference in July of 1945 on how Hitler had died, Stalin said that he was either living in Spain or Argentina, and that meant 68% of Americans polled that Hitler was alive. Oh, well, I forgot. So evidence that he faked his death was that, like, I can only find that people allegedly like saw him, and there was a bunker that was found in Argentina, and then also when from his remains there was like a skull that was said to be his, but I apparently actually belonged to a woman. And then in 2015 there was a show released called Haunting Hitler. It followed a team searching for evidence that Hitler fled to Argentina, and they would go to possible places that Hitler could have stayed, and they looked for anything that could prove that Hitler lived there, or even other high-ranking Nazi leaders. And the show ran for 3 seasons from 2015 to 2008.
You know how many episodes?
I'm not sure.
God, that's pretty fun.
They were doing a lot of things.
Oh, God. That's gonna be the entire second. I'll be alone.
There's a lot of evidence proving that Hitler did, in fact, commit suicide in Berlin in 1945. That there was eyewitness testimonies, confirmed dental records, and forensic analysis of the remains recovered by the Soviets. And the lasting effects was that it had a lot of effects on like political manipulation and disinforming. Okay, I can't say that. And insulting victims and their memory. And the one that I thought was like the worst was it was encouraging harmful ideologies. Like, for example, The theory provides a delusional fantasy for neo-Nazis and white supremacy groups, allowing them to believe that their leader may return or successfully evade justice. And then, I personally do not believe Hitler escaped. There's some good evidence that he escaped, but I don't think that evidence is very logical compared to the evidence that he did kill himself.
Thank you for the rabbit. Any questions? Did you read that there's anybody like pushing this theory for a reason, like they want people, why they would want people to believe that, or just to scare them, or are they neo-Nazis?
I'm not sure. I didn't really read anything, but it's like the neo-Nazis,
He's still alive and gonna come back for it.
yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And Argentina had kind of a quasi-fascist government allowed there, so yeah. Any questions? All right, good. I'm glad you believe Hitler is still. Good. And I think we ought to kind of stay in the same vein. Cassidy, sound good? Give me one sec.
Do I click the left or the right?
The left. Give me one sec. That's weird. Okay, I am mostly ready. Where's my? Go.
Okay, so sorry if you can't hear me very well. I have been sick for 2 weeks and I am losing my voice. My topic or my conspiracy is Holocaust denial. Holocaust. And I'm sure we all know a lot about the Holocaust, especially if you've had English your sophomore year with Miss Rummel and spent the entire first semester on The Book Thief. But just for a recap, the Holocaust was a mass genocide of 6 million minority individuals, mainly the Jewish. One main aspect of the Holocaust is gas chambers that were used to kill most of the victims. When we hear about the Holocaust, we usually think of it as being a long time ago, but it really wasn't. There's a lot of Holocaust survivors out that are still alive and a lot of their relatives. And the wound is still fresh, but the Holocaust is old enough to be misconstrued. The main idea behind Holocaust denial is that it was all a ploy for money and sympathy made up by Soviet communists. Most people do not totally deny the existence of the Holocaust. They just say that it happened, but not at the volume that has been reported. People say that the actual number killed were only a few 100,000. And another really common theory is that gas chambers were not used, and the Nazi Party did not have access to any. One of the most well-known Holocaust deniers is David Irving. He was born in March of 1983, and he's an author that has written many books, but he gained most of his fame over a legal battle he was involved in. In 1989, he made 2 speeches in Austria stating that we needed to end the gas chamber fairy tale. He also stated that Hitler could not possibly have known about the Holocaust, but if he did, he had to have been against it. He must have helped the Jewish people. In many countries, especially in Europe, Holocaust denial is legal. Austria is one of these countries. So David Irving was arrested in November 2005 and he went to trial. Eventually, he was convicted. He served 3 years in prison. Obviously, he was surprised with the verdict because it is reported that he had bought a plane ticket home to London before the trial happened.
When did he say it?
He said it in 1989, but he was arrested in 2005.
He wanted to get arrested. That's why he went back.
So Holocaust denial has always been around since right after World War II ended, and it has only gotten worse with the media. About 50% of Gen Z and millennials have reported seeing Holocaust denial online. This slide has a bunch of different posts made about the Holocaust. Some of them say, "Please spare me crocodile tears and Holocaust guilt tripping. I don't care." Another one says, "Now that you're seeing all these Jewish people getting caught up making up atrocities, does that ever make you wonder if they lied about past ones?" And this next one, I will say, has a lot of hashtags embedded into it. I'm not going to say the hashtags. A lot of them. It says, even if you were to believe the 6 million Holocaust lie, it pales in comparison to the slaughter of over 100 million people as a result of Jewish-created communism. Yet the former is shoved down our throats, while the latter is never mentioned. So these are not like the only ones I saw. I think they're just the most prominent ones. I looked into a lot of pieces of Holocaust denial in the media. None of them show any evidence. They're all just people saying the Holocaust is fake, saying they don't believe in it. They have no proof at all. And I've mentioned the hashtags just to show that it's kind of not based on anything intelligent. It's not, there's no facts, there's nothing that seems very truthful about any of it. So a lot of people, when they talk about the Holocaust being fake, they say that it was not possible to kill people, so many people, using gas chambers. So the numbers were faked and made higher for monetary gain. So basically, people will say it was not possible to kill so many people in using gas chambers in however long the Holocaust went on, because it took, I think it was a little over 3 minutes. That could be wrong. I might be misremembering. Yeah, it took a couple minutes to kill each person. So a lot of people say that it wasn't possible for gas chambers to have been used, or if they were used, it wasn't such a high volume. People also claim that eyewitness testimonies are faked and people are paid off to say these things, and what they have said has been really rehearsed so that they don't get details wrong. There's also the idea that was made popular by people like David Irving that Hitler was against the Holocaust. So if the Holocaust did happen, it wasn't Hitler's fault and he should not be blamed for it. But I think the main reason for this conspiracy is confirmation bias. A lot of people, especially like in going back to the posts that I found on social media, a lot of people like to say that they're not Nazis. They'll be like, I'm really anti-Nazi. But, and then they'll say something that disproves the Holocaust. So I think a lot of people are just looking for stuff that already goes with their kind of Nazi beliefs.
They're not Nazis.
No, they're not. They would never. But
Yeah, I was gonna add that. Very good.
who's behind it? Nazis. Like well, not Nazis, but
Yeah.
and I think a lot of uneducated people, because I think like I said before, it's not really backed up by anything. It's all just so facts. Holocaust denial has huge effects on everyone. It puts out a lot of misinformation about what actually happened, and it pushes harmful stereotypes about Jewish people. I think it also promotes anti-Semitism and Nazi beliefs. There's also a lot of harm on survivors of the Holocaust and their family members, because Holocaust deniers are trying to erase the pain the victims have, and they are furthering the trauma that survivors have. Also erases the memory of all the people that died, because the 6 million number is an estimate and it's an underestimate. It's believed that closer to 10 million people were killed during the Holocaust. So when people say only a couple 100,000 were killed, which is still a lot, you're erasing the lives of all of the other people that were lost. I think Holocaust deniers are crazy. The Holocaust did happen, and even if you try to refute it, there's not really any evidence to back it up. Everything is just speculation. I think Holocaust denial is harmful, and it takes a very messed up kind of person to deny its existence.
I like to make me seem like they're good people. No, I'm a good person. Any questions? Yeah, I think you're right about the anti-Semitism as the issue, and the fact they're not Nazis. Any questions? Good job. One thing I'll say, two things. First off, over half of the people who died in the Holocaust were shot. They shot, and they did mass gases, and they did, but they lined up and shot people. It's inconceivable what they did. And I was talking to my nephew the other day. He's a graduate getting his PhD at University of San Diego. Tough duty being San Diego. I know, but it's school coursework and stuff. But he's Jewish. My niece and nephew are Jewish, and they were talking about it. So he said there was an a Holocaust denier that accosted him. Now, he didn't know Michael, my nephew, was Jewish. He started with, oh yeah, well, you know that's not true. Yeah, people like us. I'm Jewish. And then, oh, okay. So, no, that's not what I mean.
I'm not a Nazi.
Okay. I think we need another coup. Beth, wanna go? Oh, was there a rabbit?
No.
Ah. So that was it.
All right.
And, I should have one more thing. There's gonna be a Nazi cult, a former German. It's a cult in Chile. So it's all tied together today. It's all Nazis all day. Okay.
That's a sentence.
That'd be a good one if someone was walking down the hall. Yell that. Oh, I filmed this. That's not what I meant. Okay, go.
This is the Chilean coup of 1973, and I'm Beth. Oh, right. Had the mouse.
Yeah, there we go.
Aha. So first off, there's two tracks in this. There's the USA and there's Chile itself. Starting off with the background, the domino theory is going around. It's 73. We have just pulled out of Vietnam, and the Cold War is still going on. And of course, Nixon's president. We all know what that means. Nixon. Next, there was two things going on in Chile, both put up by Nixon. U.S. operatives were in Chile working on track 1, which was a track to make the economy of Chile hurt because they disliked the Chilean president. He was a Marxist and like very fond of communist ideas and was in close relations with Castro and Cuba. So the U.S. did not like Allende. And then track 2 was later after Allende had been elected. And then in the 1970 elections, what happened is Allende was going up against 2 other candidates and Alessandri. And what happened is Allende won it by a very near margin, and the U.S. tried to sway votes by paying off Chilean congressmen because they didn't want a communist in Chile and were scared of communism spreading. So what happened is Allende did eventually win the election despite their efforts. And that's what prompted the U.S. to start trying to get the Chilean military to revolt against Allende and incite a coup. These are the people. So Salvador Allende is there in the top corner. He was the president in 1973 when this coup happened. The man in the bottom is General Augusto Pinochet, who was the general who then became the military dictator of Chile upon Allende's death and eventual overthrow. And then, of course, you have Nixon in the top. You also have the leaders of the Air Force, Navy, and National Police who helped collaborate with this to make it happen. And Henry Kissinger and Nixon had talks in the White House about overthrowing Chile and making this coup happen. Before we get to this, I would like to mention 3 days before this coup had occurred, apparently it's speculated and confirmed by a couple of records that 3 days before the coup actually occurred, Nixon and Kissinger actually knew it was about to happen and decided not to chill Chile, despite being like minor allies. The event itself happened on September 11th in 1973. It's called the second 9/11 sometimes in like reports for this reason. First off, the army and other areas blockaded the port outside of the city where the Chilean presidential palace is held, and they started bombing the city and bombing radio towers so that Allende couldn't get out messages. They took over the radio towers when there was only 3 stations left that they hadn't bombed, and they called out for Allende to resign. Allende refused and fled into the presidential palace, where he later decided to take his life as the palace was being overrun and bombed. So the conspiracy here is more of the fact that the U.S. was involved in this coup and inciting the coup. and it's pretty well believed that it did mostly happen. The US Senate and CIA started an investigation following a New York Times article, and the first evidence was by Colby and Michael J. Harrington. And they basically said, hey, the US is doing some things, and they testified that this could have possibly happened, as they might have heard reports. And then Frank Church from the Church Party, who we heard for, I believe it was MK Ultra as well. When they went through looking through different CIA documents, they found recordings of Nixon and Henry Kissinger talking about how they needed to make Chile not elect Allende and how they wanted Allende to not be the president. One of the specific lines from Nixon was they wanted to make the economy scream because then the people would be mad at Nixon. A series of riots ended up following that track of action, and that was just before the coup. Proving the conspiracy, there are articles declassified by the Biden administration in 2023 on the 50th anniversary of the coup. And those were the articles where Nixon had talked about what had happened and also just talking about the events in Chile, the plans, track 1 and track 2 for making the economy hurt and trying to pay off people to not have Allende around. The Chilean government was also clearly reformed into a military dictatorship until the 90s. And so it had to have happened for the government. The U.S. denied involvement directly after the incident had occurred, and even on the U.S. government site today, which I found, however, it concluded that there was little evidence to link the U.S. government to covert support of Pinochet's coup.
That's still there?
Yeah, down to the very bottom at the end of the article.
Oh my God. Okay.
So they talk about all this evidence on things that the U.S. might have done, and then, oh, but maybe not. And then, in the end, a lot of people were killed for supporting Allende in the past when Pinochet had taken over for the military dictatorship. They didn't like Allende's ideas, and so they killed off a bunch of people and rounded up people into the Chilean stadium where they like tortured them and everyone who shared like Allende's ideas. And the casualties were lessened, and it said that there's less than 3,000 people killed. But there are at least 10,000 people in the stadium alone who were tortured for the within the new government. So, and that covered was by the Chilean government. Lasting effects. We all dislike Nixon. Number one.
I'm with you.
There's also a lot of mistrust of the U.S. government based on this, because the U.S. government did actually incite a coup and tried to deny involvement with it. And then, yeah, Alon supporters and tense relations with Cuba due to the fact that Castro didn't like Pinochet killing off Allende because he and Allende were friends, and they were going to be allies because Allende was communist. It's a conspiracy. It's a real crime. A lot of people died because of this, and the U.S. was involved, I'm fairly sure. And it has just terrible lasting effects on their culture and everything. They still have a memorial wall for all the people who were during this time. And the rabbits, thank you for listening.
Very good. Good job. Any questions? So, do you know what kind of government Pinochet ran besides the capturing and killing or torturing all of Allende's supporters?
I didn't get to that.
Yeah, just a really brutal dictatorship that the U.S. Of course, right? Yeah, I know, that's kind of sad, but
Yeah,
that's
the
true.
U.S. overthrew a democracy.
That's happened a number of times, yeah. Allende's a really interesting guy. I'm glad you said Allende, because I want to say Allende, because I've learned English, even though I know the double L. It's hard for me not to, so I'm glad you did that. Good job, Omar. Another. Oh, I should have had Frank Church, who was a Democratic senator from Idaho. I have a story about Frank Church. Yeah, personal story about Frank Church. Maybe I'll tell you. Maybe not. You want to know the story? We'll see if I have time. Remind me, I'll tell you the story. What's this? All right, who would like to go next, Keegan?
Oh, okay, sorry, it is not.
So oddly, also kind of goes into World War II.
That's kind of why I did it. I saw this and I thought they all kind of fit together.
Yeah.
So give me 1 sec. With the mouse. All right, go.
So I did the Tuskegee syphilis study. The Tuskegee syphilis study began in 1932 and ended in 1972 in Tuskegee, Oklahoma, where researchers aided in the research of untreated syphilis in African American men through unethical experiments.
Sure, it's Oklahoma.
See?
Hmm?
Was it Alabama?
Yeah.
Oh,
No, let it be. This right.
yeah. Um, so for this era, there was the US had just gone through the Great Depression, like towards the starting of this, and then they went through World War II, Cold War, Vietnam, and then there's also many movements such as the Civil Rights Movement and the anti-protests. And then Herbert Hoover was the president at the start of this era as well. A little background. Syphilis is a sexually transmitted infection, which it has multiple stages and it doesn't really get like it has severe symptoms that can rarely pop up in the earlier, but it really gets bad in the later stages. Some of the earlier stages are the sores, which will spread like this all over the body. And then you'll develop flu-like symptoms. And then in the worst cases, it will start infecting vital organs like the heart and brain. And that's what leads to the deaths of people who are infected. And then there was a cure during this time. It was arsenamide, which was also called salvarsan and compound 606, depending on who was talking about it. And then later on, there was bismuth as a cure. It wasn't like as effective, I believe. And then penicillin was found, which is the most effective. But yeah. And then the event and who did it. The study consisted of all African American men who were hit hard by the Great Depression. The study took 399 men with latent syphilis and studies in the study's control group of 201 men who had been infected. And these men didn't know they had syphilis, and they were instead told they had bad blood, which was used to describe syphilis, and then a few others, which I didn't write down. Oh, and they were also promised paid medical care and free food by the Public Health Service. And then how it was released. The study concluded 40 years later in 1972, and there was only 74 men left alive. And of those men, 40 of their wives had also contracted syphilis, and then 19 of their children had congenital syphilis. And then the study wouldn't be discovered till 40 years after it began. It got leaked through. It got leaked to the public through Peter Buxton when he was bringing up the ethicalness of the experiment, which then was leaked to the press, which led to Gene Heller making that article, which I think that is the actual article, which then got released to the public. Yeah, which also led to the project's abandonment in 1972. One factor that proves this was indeed this did occur, was in the early periods of the study, the US joined World War II, which 256 of the infected men registered for the draft, but they were later turned away because you had to get it treated first. However, the scientists who ran the study pulled some strings which allowed patients to be exempt from the treatment list, hence violating the restrictions on the draft and potential endangerment of others in the draft. And since they were going to a different on it posts this. And then it was extensively documented. So that's also another thing that proves this. And then yeah. The only information that disproves this event is misinformation. I really couldn't find any like very factual based things that prove this did not happen. And it even went as far to say that this is a like history or an event recorded in American history. So there really is no way to disprove it. And then long-lasting effects. This event, however, has long-lasting effects such as public distrust, considering the study went on for 40 years before being released to the public, which still leads to much mistrust. This did, however, lead President Bill Clinton in 1997, which was a couple years after it completed, to make a formal apology to the survivors at least. And then there are some of the photos of them actually in the White House. And I probably should have looked up what room they were in. What room they were in and whatnot. But yeah. And then this was also accompanied by Clinton strengthening the bioethics training and established Tuskegee University as the Central National Bioethics and Research Center. And then my evaluation of this event is that it's real. There are genuine facts that prove this event to be true, and there are no facts that disprove the event. And I think there are still a couple survivors.
Yeah.
So,
Facts don't lie. I think.
yes.
And a rabbit.
Yeah.
And so they did not know they had syphilis, and there's still a few survivors.
Yeah.
How many wives?
It was like 40 of their wives, of the 74 that were still.
Yeah, and they could have cured it or at least done something.
Yeah.
But they didn't care. All right, good job. And I think we have time for one more. Fiona, you want to go? Or do you want to go?
I've been raising my hand for 30 minutes.
Well, no.
Do you have mine?
I don't want you to.
Um,
All right. Give me a
And
second,
then-
give me a second.
my notes is the paper I wrote, so I'll hand that to you after.
Where are you? Go.
All right. All right, so I did the Roswell incident, which is a very famous example of one of those famous conspiracies. That picture is actually from the official Air Force website where they say, no, it wasn't aliens. Yeah. So the Roswell, the conspiracy theory is 1947, an alien craft crash landed in the desert near Roswell, New Mexico. The United States government quickly took away the debris and alien bodies of research, covered up the event. There are a lot of spin-offs of this, like why it crashed, why the spacecraft was there, and what the government did, because the conspiracy is very old. So the background, in late June of 1947, rancher W.W. Brazel found strange debris in one of his fields, including tinfoil, rubber, tape, and wood. The tinfoil is very important. Later, he was talking with his uncle, who was into the flying saucer craze at the time because it was the Cold War, and he says it was probably a flying saucer. On July 6th of that year, the rancher told of Sheriff Wilcox of Roswell about the debris, and then Sheriff Wilcox told the Army airfield that was nearby. And the Army airfield dispatched Major Jesse Marcel and another captain to gather up all the debris and bring it back. 2 days, and then on July 8th, the Army airfield said that it was a flying disc that they had recovered. And that sent everybody into a craze because they just said they had recovered an alien craft. And then 2 days later, the officer said, no, it was a weather balloon that went down. So what the debris was really from was from a secret project called Project Mogul. It was a classified balloon project that had, and it was a string of hundreds of balloons that had sonar on them and listening capabilities. They would fly just far enough outside the Soviet Union where they couldn't detect it, and then they would listen for Soviet nuclear testing. So they would hear if they were detonating bombs. That information was only released in July of 1994, which was many, many years after the actual conspiracy, and that is what the government was actually trying to cover up. Didn't want people to know about Project Milner. So, it was the Roswell incident was pretty obscure until the 1970s. It was used as kind of like a filler and some evidence for other conspiracies, like some crash in South America. And then in 1978, Jesse Marcel, who's one of the people cleaning up the debris, said that the weather balloon story was a cover-up, which it was, but he believed it to be an alien spacecraft. I found some places where he claimed he hid the debris in his water heater because the government said, no, that's an alien spacecraft. You can't let anybody know. And then conspiracy theories quickly snowballed and books were written with a lot of evidence. Most of the evidence that we have that it would have been an alien spacecraft is that interview. So it is a really long-lived conspiracy. It technically started in 1947, so it's branched out, especially from the 70s, on like different explanations of what happened, why the government covered it up, what else it could have been, and it's used as evidence in other theories, especially the government covering stuff up. So the government covered up the alien crash at Roswell. They'll cover up this too, and then there are aliens. We one crashed at Roswell.
What was that picture?
That was definitive proof of alien evidence, but it was actually from a movie they made about Roswell. That's really.
Is that real movie? No film. Go.
Yeah. Oh, and then I forgot to say can I go backslide?
Yeah. There we go.
There's a couple slides back. Thank you.
Here?
No, one more. So that is Jesse Marcel, and he's holding the tinfoil from the balloon project. And some of the evidence that they used was that Jesse Marcel said when he crumpled up the tinfoil, it would spring back into its original shape. That's one of the most common things. So, new information. My dad has a friend who said he had access to the classified Roswell documents. And he said they recovered, quote, alien bodies half eaten by coyotes, regenerative materials, and that's them crumpling up and the springs back into shape. And then the government took the craft away, reverse engineered it, and the UFOs that we see today are actually government test projects. The government found in the alien spacecraft that crashed in Roswell a way to take apart the gravity in molecules. I'm not making this up. This is what he said in the report. Took apart the gravity in the molecules to make an almost unlimited source of energy, and we are currently weaponized. UFOs we see today is the U.S. government tests.
So gravity's in molecules.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's an official document.
Yeah. It's all in.
All right.
You have an evaluation.
I thought it was very interesting how there is an actual conspiracy. The government did actually lie to us. It was not a weather balloon. It was Project Mogul. But that's not the conspiracy people focus on. They focus on conspiracy theory that aliens crash landed and then now we're building UFOs.
And your friends, your
My-
dad's friend,
He said he had access to the Roswell files.
is he here in Helena?
No,
Oh, he'd be a good guest speaker.
he would be a good guest speaker.
And he had all this?
He said, yep, he said that he saw they had pictures of all the different regenerative materials.
One more
And-
question, really quick. Was there anything on the tape? Do you remember that? There's-
Oh, yes, there was symbols on the tape. There were specific symbols that they said were alien runes on the tape, and I think it was just the writing that they had on the tape to put on the.
To let you know where there was tape. We get the writing on it so you can see. I mean, aliens could tell.
Aliens, it was definitely aliens.
All right, good job. Okay, something really quick about this. So Jesse Marcel's dad. Jesse Marcel's dad, I'm sorry, not dad. Let me start over. Jesse Marcel's son lived in Helen. He was a doctor. And about maybe 17 years ago, we talked to my class. And he was 100% convinced that it was an alien. He said he was a little kid and his dad brought this stuff home and he was convinced of it. Huh? He passed away. He passed away about a decade. And really, but he said it was all real and he believed it 100%. I'm not saying I believe it, but his dad did, so he was there. You know, the tinfoil, it was on a weather balloon. It's kind of very, yeah, springy. Do you want to hear my Frank Church stories?
Yes.
Are you deserving?
Maybe.
I'll tell you one story. Frank Church. So Frank Church did the church committee, and that was a committee that looked at the CIA, like overthrowing the government in Iran. So because we had someone mention the government overthrowing the government of Iran. We had that. We had MK Ultra. Bev mentioned it. There's a lot. Church committee did all these things, show what the FBI did or the CIA did, and he thought he could become president. So in 1976, he jumped into the presidential race for the Democratic nomination. He was from Idaho, a little bit late because the whole process was new. And there's a guy named Jimmy Carter who nobody knew. The joke was Jimmy who, and was all of a sudden ahead for the Democratic nomination. And all of a sudden, like more mainstream Democrats were going, "Oh my God, we got to get somebody better known." A few people jumped in late. Turned out to be too late, but they thought there was still a chance. And so Montana's primary is in June. That's 1976, and Church wanted the Montana votes. He thought there's a chance they could no one get the majority, and he could sneak in. So he campaigned all over Montana, including Miles City. And he campaigned in Miles City. He flew into, at that time, and I'm not making this up, it was Miles City International Airport. They had one flight a month from Lethbridge, Canada, so it got the name International Airport. And okay, Miles City then was about 10,000 people, now it's about 8,000. But he came to Miles City, and I remember I was at school, and my mom and dad, my dad couldn't go, but my mom called me out so I could go hear the Frank Church. I went to hear presidential camp, guy running for president. You coming to Miles City? That was pretty cool. So we went up there and it was like right after lunch. And remember, he got out a twin engine propeller plane, and they had like just a flatbed sitting out there. And he jumped on that and gave a speech. There were maybe 200 people there to listen to him. And I had no idea. All I remember is trying to get close to him. I wanted to get close. So I was trying to weave through the crowd. Anyone ever do this when they're little kids? And you could, kind of go through the legs of people. Actually, my dad was there. I lied. My dad was there. Because I remember my mom and dad. I jumped the gun on that. My mom called me out. My dad was there. To my older brother. And so I snapped through the crowd and kind of got away from him, went to the front. I was near the front. And he spoke. I don't even know what he said. I have no idea. And he got done speaking and it was done. And all of a sudden, it kind of cleared, like right by me, path in the middle, so we can go through and shake hands. And all of a sudden, I'm like right there, and he's coming through. And the thing about it is that, remember, Robert Kennedy was assassinated back in '68. Oh my. And then George Wallace, there was an attempted assassination in 1972, and he was paralyzed. And so they started putting, now full-time, once you run for president, at a certain point of, well known, like chance, you get Secret Service protection. So he had, I remember, 2 Secret Service agents. And so he got off and there's a Secret Service agent, remember this, black, dark suit, sunglasses, holding a briefcase. Little briefcase, you know what the briefcase is?
Bomb.
Machine gun. It's a machine gun. Take another thing, flip the wrist and pull out a small machine gun called a MAC-10. I didn't know that at the time, but, and then the guy behind, they're walking. And they start walking, like, so one guy got out, church, and then another service agent. And they're walking through the church and shaking hands. And I remember being at the front, and it kind of opened up in front of me, and I just go, oh, they opened up for me. And so I kind of stepped into the opening. And he's shaking hands. I remember like this guy, I remember he seemed huge, even though it wasn't. But I remember the dark suit, and he's not just like doing this. Walking comes very slowly, and I'm like, like this. And he got closer and closer, and then he just goes, true story, he just goes, flaps me. And the church came up and stomped, no, not happening. But he did, just knocked me down. And I remember like, I'm going back. Okay, it's 1976, do you want to know my age? It's not. It's not. And I remember thinking, I was still relatively young, and I remember thinking, I'm a little kid, like people are gonna come rushing to my aid.
No.
No one said, and I remember church literally just kind of stepped over me and kind of looked down and kept going. And I'm just like, and I remember just kind of sitting up and no one came and they just kept going. And that's why church belonged. Secondly, one more thing I'll tell you real quick. This is why I forgot about my dad. My mom picked me up. My dad found me after I'm still sitting on the ground. And I never forget my dad said, what the hell were you thinking? And that was all I got. That's how I met Frank Church.
She wanted to make sure it's mentioned. No people of Finland.
No people of Finland?
No, because, so this is how she explained it to me. You guys, honestly, or no?
Yeah, I want to see real quick. Go on.
So Finland, so apparently there's like a certain, you're good.
You need to look up and you see it.
Is there another?
Just like two more.
Oh,
So go on.
apparently, so as explained to me, there's a population of the world that's unaccounted for, that census just can't know. And that percentage happens to be the exact same percentage of people in Finland. And have you ever met a person from Finland?
Yes. It's the woman who taught her for part of it.
So you can't ask for.
Years ago.
Yeah, my sister wanted to
I
make
just
sure.
wanted to see it real quick. You got good enough. Very good job. Nice job. Everyone did great today. Very good. Good job on it.
I was just asking the other person asked to write a letter about just some of the college. You kind of said.
And so I got it. I got it basically done.
Oh,
cool. So you talked about.
Yeah. It's just the last letter asks about things and like there are certain things where like that has to like in theater, of course, like there have been times where like it's been kind of important, but if you don't see it as important, it's not really. It's just the question asks for like a summary. No, if that's
That was
something
not what we
you,
did in class.
if that is something you see that needs to be brought up in the letter,
I'm gonna say. Oh, that's great.
I'm fine with whatever.
Okay.
If you let us-
I'll just, I was
Well, I'll tell you about it, so,
Are you telling about your?
different thing, but so I was doing more research on Mars, interesting.
yeah.
I just had to find them, and I found like this, almost like Twitter thread, unfortunately, these guys that were like including the Kermit, because I mentioned like I was disappointed that they included it, and they still so changed the like, I believe that it was. I don't know, I'm helping the character, that's why it's Kermit the Frog and Fox.
Getting out or getting.
Okay, either people are pretty funny, Kermit, Bear, or the villain.
There's both.
I guess that's it.
Sheet of paper, it's quiz day in the valley.
big molester. He's a brother of big molester.
I mean,
Do it for free. Do it for free, you told me.
My frisbee bros.
no.
Wait, actually?
We should
Yeah.
put somebody in the stop for this.
I've been hitting it, I've been throwing against the wall too hard.
Playing against sports, I'm telling you. Frisbees.
I have to try that.
This.
It's it's out of my way. I gotta figure out.
It's way up there.
I didn't go that way. I gotta figure out how I want to do that.
You can just like, they can do it first. You do what I do.
Oh, that's what, I do like. The wind is, oh, wow.
Appreciate it.
I don't like it this windy. I'm close to thinking.
That COVID?
Have you guys noticed the surveyors out there for the, since they're building for the school? Surveying right outside.
But
Yeah, turn off my. Yeah, we're gonna. We're not gonna finish the area. I'm supposed to say. I already split mine with blue.
Maybe you're holding both seats.
We'll see. I don't know if I wanna be around for the construction. All right.
Think you can make that?
Yeah, next year will be the great year of construction, people.
Great year of construction.
Tell the high is gonna be chaos.
Oh, yeah.
Good thing they have little.
But not our property.
It's gonna be and then the practice field's gonna be there, the parking lot's gonna be there.
What's the practical?
Yeah, where the parking lot is now, it's gonna be practice field and the new shops, it's gonna be really, they're gonna redo some rooms.
Mr. Edson's
Then the new parking lot and then the parking lot and the front of the school is gonna be, where the back of the school is there.
It's not that. It's gonna be weird.
And you guys would just be in the middle of the construction and not get,
There'll be a new lot.
it's still good.
That's how.
All right, you can. So, there's 11 questions. You guys guess what letters they'll be.
Okay.
Then we're gonna check how you guys do against the classes that have the quiz. This is science.
If we're better, we could get to.
Yeah, you guys are better. 1 to 11. Some of them, I accidentally did letters for both the questions and the answers, so it should be written in 1 to 11. It'll make sense if you get one. I ain't sure how I did it. That was one clearly I was. not paying attention. I would still like to fit. Oh, you need one?